How's it going, guys? We are here at Horseshoe, Baltimore for some 1-3, and let's just get straight into it.
I got 9s in the big blind. There's a race to 10 and a couple calls. I make it 35 to go, and I wish I went a little bigger, but we end up getting 3 calls. With 140 in the pot, we see a flop 4 ways that comes King Jack 4 all diamonds. The small blind checks, I check, and it checks through. The turn card is the best worst card I could ask for. It's the 9 of diamonds. So although we turn a set, there is now 4 diamonds on the board. I check it, and middle position up at 70. It folds back to me, and I'm just not quite getting the right price to make the call here. Although it is very enticing, I like to make the fold. I'm in the big blind again, this time with ace jack of spades. There's an open of 15 from the button who's a tight player. I like to make the call, and one other player calls as well. We see a flop 3 ways that comes jack 8-4 rainbow. I decided to lead out on this card for $20. I'm not a big fan of this move. I think it's better since we're out of position to check it and then see what the button does. But we end up getting a fold from the player to my left, and the button makes the call. The turn card comes the 9 of clubs. I decide to lead out again, this time for 40, and he thinks about it for a sec, but eventually makes the call. Now the river is where I definitely messed up. The river comes the 3 of clubs, and I decide to bet 75 here, and he instantly shoves for about 300. Now the reason I didn't like this river bet is because I wasn't really thinking about the why behind my bet. He was the pre-flop raiser, meaning he's going to have more combinations of kings, queens, maybe a flop set like pocket 8s in this scenario. I don't think leading flop was the worst move, but when we get called and we're out of position, we should consider checking turn a lot of the time. Now I found out where I am in the hand way too late, and I'm faced with a tough decision on the river. I think about it for a while, and eventually elect to make the fold. He doesn't show, and I'm pretty sure I made the right fold, but I really shouldn't have been in this scenario in the first place. My stack drops to about 200, and let's see if we can crawl ourselves out of this hole we got ourselves into. Again in the big blind, this time with ace 4 offsuit. Couple imps to me, I just check my option here, and see a flop 5 ways that comes king queen 9 all diamonds. I check it, and the player to my left bets 11. It folds all the way back to me, and I like to just make the call. The turn is beautiful, it comes the 7 of diamonds. I check it, hoping that he bets again, but unfortunately he checks it back. The river comes another king, and I don't want this checking through, so I decide to bet 20, and he ends up making the call. He ends up showing queen jack with the jack of diamonds, and we are good. The very next hand in the small blind, we got pocket kings. Couple limps, I make it 15, and only get a call from middle position who's an OMC. See a flop heads up that comes 4-3 deuce with 2 diamonds. I continue for 15, and he makes the call. The turn comes another deuce, and I decided to check it to him, but I think this is a card where we need to keep betting. After I check it, he bets small to $15, and I like to just make the call here. The river comes the 6 of clubs. I check it again. This time he bets 15 again, and I decide to just make the call. He ends up showing pocket 8s, so our kings are good here. In the cutoff here, I have ace jack offsuit and make it 15 to go. We end up getting 3 calls and go to flop 4 ways that comes king jack 6 rainbow. It checks to me, I check it, and the button checks as well. The turn comes the 7 of hearts. It checks to me again, and this time I bet 20 and only get a call from the button. The river comes the queen of clubs. I'm just going to take my showdown value here. I check it, and he checks it back. He ends up having ace 7 offsuit for a turn pair of 7s, and our pair of jacks are going to take it down. I'm in the big blind with queen 4 offsuit. There's a bunch of limps before it gets to me. I decide to just check my option here, and we see a flop 5 ways that comes queen 10-5. The small blind checks. I check being so multi-way, and it checks through. The turn comes a 7, and when the small blind checks, I decide to bet $7, hoping to get value from one of these players. But that is not what happens. We end up getting called by all 4 opponents in the hand. At this point, I am very confused on where I'm at in the hand. I don't think I'm ahead. And when the river comes another 5 and the small blind checks, I decide to just check here, and everyone else checks as well. I show my hand thinking we might be good here, and apparently we are. Not really sure what everyone had there. The small blind had king high, maybe someone had ace high. Although these past couple pots have been small, they are starting to add up and keep us going in the right direction. We were getting dealt a lot of pocket pairs, just not seeing many flops we could continue on, until we pick up pocket 5s. There's a raise to 16 from the tight player from the ace-jack hand. I like to make the call, and the OMC to the initial raiser's right makes the call. We see a flop 3 ways that comes jack 7-5. We flop bottom set here. Unfortunately, both players check it to me, and I like to check hoping one of them bets on the turn. The turn comes the 4 of clubs, and unfortunately both players check again. Now it's time to start building a pot. I bet small to $15, and good for us, both players elect to make the call. Now if the flop wasn't good enough, the river is overkill. The river comes, the last 5 in the deck, giving us quads. Both players check it to me again, and I think a lot about sizing here, and elect to bet somewhat small here to $40. The OMC folds, and now it's back on the initial raiser. He thinks about it for a bit, and eventually elects to make the call. We show our hand, and obviously we're good, and the player mucks. Nice to get some value there with quads, and this hand brought my stack back over our initial buy-in. Even better, we're now on the board for the high hand promotion. Our hand just needs to hold for 13 minutes, and we'll lock up an additional $500. Will our hand hold? Of course not. Someone makes quad 10s about 5 minutes later, so no high hand bonus for us, but oh well. I got queen jack of clubs in the big blind. There's a raise to 15 from early position. Only I make the call, and we see a flop heads up that comes jack 10-6 with 2 clubs. I check it, he bets 20, and I elect to just make the call here. The turn card is fantastic. It comes the 3 of clubs. I check it to him, and he only bets 20 again. This time I decide to check raise him to 65, and he thinks about it for a sec, but eventually elects to make the call. The river comes another jack, and he only has about $110 behind. This isn't the greatest card to get more value, just in case he did have an overpair here, but I like to put it all in, and he thinks about it for a sec, and eventually elects to make the fold. The last hand of note, I've been trying to play a wider range, and here we have 8-10 of diamonds. I make it 15 to go, and only get a call from the OMC. We see a flop heads up that comes king 5-5 with 2 diamonds. Even if we didn't have a flush draw here, we're going to have way more kings in our range. And if he does have a 5, we're going to find out about it sooner rather than later. I decide to continue for $20, and he elects to make the fold. At this point it was getting pretty late, so I decided to rack up and hit the cage.
So we were in for 400, out for 539 for a profit of 139, bringing our 30 episode total to a profit of 1838. Pretty unfortunate we didn't get that high hand bonus there, but oh well. It was nice to crawl out of that hole we dug ourselves in and book a win. As always, make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.